Before Ada Lovelace was born, the world was governed by steam, iron, and unyielding tradition. In the early 19th century, machines were built only to measure, to lift, and to power industry, never to reflect human thought. Across Britain, factories thundered through smoke-filled cities, while knowledge advanced slowly through handwritten pages and guarded lecture halls. Mathematics remained the domain of men, and women were deliberately excluded from science and logic. Creativity and calculation existed in separate worlds, never meant to touch. Yet beneath the roar of the Industrial Revolution, a quieter transformation was forming. The age itself was unknowingly preparing for a mind that could unite imagination with mathematics. Ada Lovelace had not yet entered the world, but history was already shaping the moment that would require her vision. Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, was born on December 10, 1815, into a world already divided between emotion and discipline. She was the only legitimate child of the Romantic poet Lord Byron and an Isabella Milbanke, a woman deeply devoted to mathematics and reason. Their marriage fractured within weeks of Ada's birth, and her father left England permanently, never to return. Ada would grow without his voice or guidance, yet his imagination lingered silently in her inheritance. From her earliest days, her mother took control of her education and surroundings, determined to shape her daughter through logic rather than poetry. In her first year of life, Ada stood unknowingly at the intersection of two powerful forces, creativity and calculation, where the foundation of her future intellect was quietly laid. Between the ages of 2 and 6, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, grew up in a household shaped by structure rather than affection. Her father remained absent, his name spoken rarely, his presence reduced to letters and reputation. Ada's mother, and Isabella Milbanke, believed discipline was protection, and childhood was carefully managed through schedules, tutors, and observation. Emotion was restrained, imagination monitored, and curiosity guided toward logic. Ada spent long hours indoors, surrounded by books, instruments, and quiet expectation. Though still very young, she learned that thought was valued above feeling. This controlled environment did not silence her mind, instead, it trained it. In these early years, Ada's intellect began forming in solitude, shaped by absence, order, and an unspoken belief that her future would be decided by reason. Between the ages of 7 and 10, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, entered a phase of deliberate intellectual training. Her childhood education shifted from observation to instruction, guided closely by her mother's belief that discipline could shape destiny. Tutors introduced Ada to arithmetic, geometry, and logical reasoning, subjects taught with patience and control. Her days followed strict routines, balanced between study, rest, and careful supervision. Illness occasionally interrupted her progress, but learning never stopped. Even at this young age, Ada showed unusual focus, absorbing complex ideas with quiet intensity. Numbers became familiar companions, not burdens. This period did not diminish her imagination, it refined it. By the age of 10, Ada was no longer simply a child being taught. She was a mind being trained, steadily and intentionally, for a future that demanded precision, endurance, and intellectual depth. Between the ages of 11 and 13, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, began to fuse her disciplined studies with a blossoming imagination. While her lessons in mathematics and logic continued rigorously, she also sketched designs for flying machines and experimented with early concepts of mechanical devices. Her notebooks reveal a curiosity that extended beyond numbers, reaching into the natural world, motion, and patterns. Even in adolescence, she envisioned possibilities that others could not perceive. Health challenges occasionally confined her to her room, yet her mind wandered freely, exploring ideas both practical and fantastical. These formative years marked the awakening of her creativity, a rare synthesis of reason and imagination that would later allow her to envision the potential of machines far beyond their arithmetic function. Ada was no longer just a student. She was beginning to think like an innovator. Between the ages of 14 and 16, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, faced repeated bouts of illness that confined her to bed for extended periods. Yet even in these moments of physical limitation, her mind remained active and relentless. Tutors and her mother adapted lessons to her fragile health, ensuring her study of mathematics, logic, and science continued without interruption. Ada found in her solitude a space to explore abstract ideas, pondering patterns, motion, and the mechanics of machines. Her resilience during this period strengthened her intellect and patience, qualities that would define her later work. These challenging years nurtured a determination to learn, to think independently, and to see beyond what others assumed possible. Through discomfort and constraint, Ada's mind flourished, quietly building the foundation for the extraordinary insights she would later bring to the Analytical Engine. At 17, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, stepped into the wider intellectual world. Introduced to London's elite scientific circles, she met influential mathematicians, engineers, and thinkers, including Mary Somerville, a renowned mathematician who became her mentor. Ada's disciplined upbringing and refined intellect allowed her to navigate these salons with both curiosity and confidence. She absorbed new ideas rapidly, discussing geometry, algebra, and mechanical innovations with peers far older and more experienced. These encounters expanded her perspective beyond the confines of her home education, revealing the broader potential of mathematics and science. Though young in age, Ada displayed maturity, insight, and a growing ability to connect abstract concepts with practical understanding. This period marked the beginning of her emergence as a thinker who would not only learn but also imagine and innovate in ways that were decades ahead of her time. At 17, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, encountered Charles Babbage, the brilliant mathematician and inventor of the difference engine. While many saw his mechanical invention as merely a calculating machine, Ada immediately recognized its broader potential. She engaged in thoughtful conversation, asking questions that revealed both her intellect and her imaginative vision. Babbage, impressed by her understanding, would later call her the enchantress of numbers. Ada saw beyond gears and levers, contemplating how such machines might manipulate symbols and ideas, not just numbers. This meeting sparked a lifelong intellectual partnership, where her curiosity and creativity found a rare match. It was a pivotal moment, signaling the start of her transition from a gifted student into a visionary thinker capable of conceptualizing computation in ways that would resonate for generations to come. At 17, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, encountered Charles Babbage, the brilliant mathematician and inventor of the difference engine. While many saw his mechanical invention as merely a calculating machine, Ada immediately recognized its broader potential. She engaged in thoughtful conversation, asking questions that revealed both her intellect and her imaginative vision. Babbage, impressed by her understanding, would later call her the enchantress of numbers. Ada saw beyond gears and levers, contemplating how such machines might manipulate symbols and ideas, not just numbers. This meeting sparked a lifelong intellectual partnership, where her curiosity and creativity found a rare match. It was a pivotal moment, signaling the start of her transition from a gifted student into a visionary thinker capable of conceptualizing computation in ways that would resonate for generations to come. Between the ages of 21 and 23, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, earned a reputation as the enchantress of numbers. Her mathematical skill and imaginative insight allowed her to engage with some of the most advanced scientific minds of her time. Ada's correspondence with Charles Babbage intensified, and she began to explore the deeper implications of the Analytical Engine. Unlike others, she envisioned it as capable of creating not just calculations, but patterns, music, and symbolic reasoning. Her work combined precision with creativity, reasoning with vision, and intellect with imagination. Society saw her as extraordinary, yet her influence remained largely behind the scenes. These years marked a period in which Ada transitioned fully from a prodigious student into an innovator whose understanding of machines was both practical and revolutionary. She was shaping the early foundations of what would one day become modern computer science. Between the ages of 24 and 26, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, entered a new phase of life, marriage. She wed William King, later Earl of Lovelace, forming a partnership that offered both companionship and social stability. Marriage brought responsibilities, yet Ada carefully balanced domestic duties with her intellectual pursuits. She continued studying mathematics and engaging with scientific ideas, often corresponding with influential figures and refining her work on the analytical engine. Ada's home became a space of both family life and study, where curiosity and routine coexisted. These years exemplify her ability to harmonize personal obligations with extraordinary mental focus, demonstrating that her genius was not confined to solitary study. She nurtured her intellect while embracing societal expectations, cultivating a disciplined, creative mind capable of bridging worlds, mathematics, imagination, and life itself. At the age of 27, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, returned to mathematics with renewed clarity and determination. After years balancing family life and personal study, she immersed herself fully in the world of calculation and logic. Her focus sharpened as she revisited the analytical engine, exploring its mechanisms and questioning its potential. Ada's correspondence with Charles Babbage intensified, her questions probing deeper than ever before. She began to conceptualize operations and sequences that would later form the basis of her pioneering work in computation. This period was marked by precision, patience, and intellectual rigor. Every calculation and thought was deliberate, carefully considered, as she prepared for the transformative work that would define her legacy. Ada was no longer simply a student or observer, she was a visionary laying the groundwork for ideas that would reverberate across generations. Between the ages of 27 and 28, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, undertook the ambitious project of translating Luigi Manebria's paper on Charles Babbage's Analytical Engine from French into English. The task demanded meticulous attention to detail and a deep understanding of mathematics and mechanical principles. Ada did not merely translate the words. She added her own annotations and clarifications, ensuring that the concepts were fully accessible to English-speaking readers. Her mind worked with extraordinary precision, dissecting each operational sequence and envisioning the broader applications of the machine. The translation process became a laboratory for her intellect, where careful logic met creative insight. Ada's work during this period exemplified discipline, patience, and extraordinary clarity, establishing the foundation for the legendary notes she would soon produce. At 28, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, expanded her translation of Manebria's paper into an extraordinary set of notes, which far exceeded the original text. She systematically analyzed the analytical engine, describing its operation in unprecedented detail. Ada envisioned sequences of operations, introducing concepts that foreshadowed modern programming. Her notes explored not just calculations, but the potential of machines to manipulate symbols and produce outcomes like music and art. This intellectual peak marked her most comprehensive work, demonstrating her unique synthesis of imagination and logic. She approached each concept with meticulous care, ensuring clarity and precision. In these historic notes, Ada's vision transcended her era, articulating ideas that would remain ahead of their time. Her work reflected the culmination of decades of disciplined study, focused inquiry, and creative insight, solidifying her place as a pioneer in the history of computation. At the age of 28, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, wrote what is now recognized as the world's first computer algorithm. Within her notes on the analytical engine, she described a step-by-step method for calculating Bernoulli numbers, designed specifically for execution by a machine. This was not a metaphor or speculation, it was a structured sequence of operations, loops, and variables. Ada understood that the engine could follow instructions independently of human calculation. In that realization, computation became something entirely new. Her algorithm demonstrated that machines could process logic systematically, opening the door to programmable technology. This moment stands at the center of her legacy. Ada was not predicting the future, she was defining it. With clarity and mathematical discipline, she crossed a threshold no one before her had imagined. In these pages, the foundations of modern computer programming were quietly and permanently established. Between the ages of 28 and 30, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, began to think beyond numbers and mechanisms, imagining a future no one else could yet see. She proposed that the analytical engine might one day compose music, generate art, and manipulate symbols according to rules, not intuition. Ada understood that numbers could represent more than quantity, they could encode ideas. In this period, her age became timeless, as her thinking escaped the boundaries of her century. She articulated a philosophy of computing that separated human creativity from mechanical execution, while still allowing machines to extend human thought. Her vision was neither fantasy nor speculation, but disciplined imagination grounded in mathematics. These years reveal Ada not merely as a mathematician, but as a theorist of the digital age, quietly outlining the intellectual framework of modern computing long before the technology existed to realize it. Between the ages of 30 and 33, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, encountered the quiet limits imposed by Victorian society. Despite her intellect, opportunities for formal scientific engagement narrowed, and her work received little public recognition. Social expectations, gender constraints, and the absence of institutional support slowly distanced her from active collaboration. Ada continued thinking, reading, and writing privately, but her voice grew quieter in the public record. These years were not marked by failure or drama, but by restraint. Her ideas remained intact, yet largely unseen. The world was not ready to engage fully with a woman who spoke fluently in mathematics and machines. In this silence, Ada's age reflects patience rather than decline. Her contributions endured beneath the surface, waiting for a future capable of understanding them. Between the ages of 34 and 36, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, experienced a gradual decline in health, though her intellect remained lucid and reflective. Illness limited her physical strength, but not her capacity for thought. During this period, Ada spent more time in quiet contemplation, revisiting ideas, letters, and unfinished reflections. Her world grew smaller, yet her inner life deepened. She considered her past work with clarity rather than regret, aware that her ideas had reached far beyond her own time. These years were marked by restraint and dignity, not suffering or spectacle. Ada's age here represents endurance rather than decline. Even as her body weakened, her legacy remained intact, carried forward by the precision of her thinking and the originality of her vision. She faced this chapter with calm awareness, leaving behind ideas that would outlive her physical presence. In 1852, at the age of 36, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, quietly passed away. Her death mirrored that of her father, Lord Byron, who had also died at 36, a symmetry history would later note with reflection rather than drama. Ada's final days were private and restrained, marked by stillness rather than spectacle. At the time of her passing, her work was largely forgotten, her ideas scattered across letters and notes unread by the world she had imagined. There were no public ceremonies honoring her intellect, no recognition of what she had created. Her name slowly faded from contemporary memory, leaving behind silence where innovation once lived. Yet disappearance is not erasure. Ada's life ended quietly, but the ideas she left behind remained intact, waiting patiently for a future capable of understanding their meaning and significance. Long after her lifetime, Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, was rediscovered by a world finally ready to understand her ideas. As computers emerged in the 20th century, scholars recognized that Ada had described programming more than a century earlier. Her notes revealed the first algorithm, the first vision of symbolic computing, and the first understanding that machines could extend human thought. In her honor, the Ada programming language was created, cementing her place in technological history. Ada is no longer bound to age or era. Her work lives in every line of code, every digital system, and every machine that follows instructions to create meaning. What once existed only on paper now shapes the modern world. Ada Lovelace did not simply imagine the future. She helped invent it. Her legacy endures, not as memory, but as living structure within the foundations of modern computing.